going to cut education spending for school, school spending. So we need to get in there and say and show them that there are, this mass public support. Constituents all across the state don't want to see this happen. So if you add your story to this website about how, your child, your family, your children, your community will personally be impacted by these cuts, we'll help deliver that. That's participation, saying, let's all, help build this kind of scrapbook of stories that we can then deliver. The feedback loop is then, we take pictures of delivering it. We show members of Congress or, legislators acknowledging it. We even maybe ask people in our community or on the list to help with the delivery if it's kind of needs to be all around the state or all around the country. And we just build in a feedback loop where we're showing how your little signature, your little story online added up to ideally impacting the end policy. Collaboration, on the other hand, and again, I think there are fewer examples of this, but let's say we worked on there's a few, perhaps in the less advocacy context. Genius Rocket is one that we worked on at Echo Ditto, where you can, and there's another one called 99 Designs, some of you may have heard of, where that's actually a little bit less collaborative. Scratch that. So with Genius Rocket, you can, a company or organization says, here's our idea for an ad, like a TV ad or a web ad, something like that. And different people on the site may have different forms of expertise. So you may be a scriptwriter, you may be a videographer, maybe you could do lights or something like that. So people can use the site to then collaborate and as a team bid on producing this ad at a much lower cost than say going to an agency. But so there's the types of collaboration that's needed for a group of folks like that or a group of administrators requires a lot more information sharing, right? And a lot of and perhaps some closed apps and non-public forms of communication, perhaps some listservs, perhaps there's more peer-to-peer communication that's needed versus with participation you can get away with more of a kind of one-to-many communication if you're doing it effectively.
This Genius Rocket, were these teams that came free-formed, or did they find each other on the site itself?
In most cases, they find each other. And both can happen. But.
And do you guys do any kind of screening or have any ability to report abuse or anything like that?
There is, I think, most of the kind of participatory sites we're working on, or efforts we're working on now, do involve some sort of reported abuse or flagging. I think that just accelerates it assists with the monitoring process, right? It helps with the community management, but with the gardening, whatever you want to call it. But there was not. I believe that the proof is in the pudding in terms of Genius Rocket. Either you can. I think this is kind of a right of refusal. This 99 Designs is another one that is even more explicitly works more like that, where you say, I need a logo or I need a design for this. Here's my specs. I'll pay you $200, but I'm not under any obligation to select it. So there's more of a public, okay, I don't like this one, don't like this one, don't like this one. This stays, this stays, this stays, and then everyone else you can keep submitting, and then whoever gets picked by the person who threw out the bid gets picked. So that's more of a kind of public screening process. You can submit the worst thing you can, in the world, and just won't get one.
And John, what is your finger on the motivation for maybe for why people participate in Wikipedia, and then also if there's a difference between what it is now versus what it used to be back when there was a fewer number of articles, and
I don't think the motivation has changed. I think people contribute to Wikipedia because they feel something's important, because of something's interesting they want to share, because they've gotten a lot out of reading it and they want to give back. And I think that's been true of the beginning. What I want to go back to the point that Michael made, the difference between participation and collaboration. Wikipedia is a collaboration in the sense that even the people, the rules are set by people themselves with a consensus-based thing. Now, the rules have tended to become, ossified is the wrong term, locked in place. It's kind of like nobody's going to go back and question the fundamental premises. There simply isn't enough energy to rethink some of the basic things, and the system works more or less. But the rule about biographies of living people, that you can't add controversial stuff without it being sourced, that's about 2-3 years old, and that came out of a particularly embarrassing episode, but it was a community that decided that was the case. The rule on the guideline on conflict of interest is also a community rule and has been moving in the direction of you can't edit your own stuff at all. When it was originally came out, it said you can, but you should be careful. You may want to disclose who you are, but there's some advantages not to doing it. That doesn't say anything now about the guideline doesn't say anything now about advantages of not disclosing who you are. Basically, the guideline says you should disclose who you are, but you can't necessarily get punished for it. That's one of those sort of gray areas. Wikipedia is a collaboration, and the only thing that there are a few core principles, such as anybody can edit it. You're never going to see a case where I won't say never, it's a long time. I doubt very much you're ever going to see a case where you have to register in order to edit Wikipedia. Because that's just a fundamental core. There's like 5 of them. But other than those 5 basic things, it's pretty much up for grabs. And it's very difficult to change. You've got this huge ocean liner moving along. You can sort of rearrange the chairs on the deck, but and change the menus down in the where people eat. But it's still going to be an ocean liner because it's still an encyclopedia, and everybody's committed to it being an encyclopedia. But getting back to the question of participation versus collaboration, Wikipedia is a collaboration because there's nobody making the rules. The people who do the editing are the people that make the rules. There's no difference between somebody who edits an article and someone who edits a rule. Except if you're brand new and you're probably not going to be successful in getting the rule changed. That is, your change will show up for 20 or 30 seconds, maybe a minute or two, and then someone else will flip it back because you haven't explained, justified, etc. But the rules are open to change too. I think the more top-down control you have, the more you tend to go toward participation. You sort of contribute a video, contribute information, whatever it is. Sort of you're building a mosaic where people have the right to put a little stone in the wall, somewhat wherever they want to, but it's a mosaic, it's a collection of stones. So if you're scheduling meetups or when it gets more interesting, the more freedom you give people to do things. Researching this for this panel, I came across a Wired article from July 2007 called "Did Assignment Zero Fail? Look Backward and Lesson Learned." Assignment Zero was an attempt in 2006 to use crowdsourcing to write about crowdsourcing. That is, they basically said, "Hi, we want people to write about in a collaborative way about crowdsourcing." And there were hundreds of volunteers to show up, and then there was one staffer. They hadn't figured out exactly how people were going to interact, and so they basically sort of expected people to figure out how to decide what they were going to do. Well, it didn't happen by and large. People sort of said, "I'm here to contribute, but you really need to give me some guidance," and there wasn't any guidance, and so they kind of drifted away. So the more open-ended something is, the more problematical it can be. The more closed-end things are, the less you're going to get, in some sense, from people. You're not necessarily going to get their creativity. I participated for a while in Project Gutenberg, actually I think a related project, where you were doing proofing of optical character recognition text. So somebody had taken an old book that was out of copyright, scanned it, run an OCR, and you were there to check the computer's OCR, which usually had errors in it, and fix them. And there are thousands of books out there that have been put together by the efforts of volunteers like me, but I got bored after a while. I was contributing, I was doing the first proofreading, there's a second proofreading and an editor review and a senior editor review, and then it finally gets put out for the public. So I was participating. I was not